ɔman Ghana ne amahodoɔ soɔ nye di kan edit yo se mufo aso ne so akuchi agukrata aso no ye ba be kenken amamo e wo kase ye bokwan so ensema me de ba be so mo anopai edosu bebre ne edi makoti ni bi ni eye osofo ohwa akwan ne akwantempo so munyamfo Francis Asenso Boache e de nsem bi abeto abontene sanso na osofo ohwa nsase ene obo ade munyamfo Samuel Abuginapo enso akasa we ya ne nsema oduo pie ka ne ye be kenken amamo e wo simedi asantem mi amaje peni edi ene fiada no pa no nso mpa mu kase boba abesom mo median ne akonoba na offset Right na me fakase bonu ntwemu ensomo afi 2021 ena Ghana mampanyina na adodanko akufuado eni aso ye omo sha akwan ne akwantempon so esigi na ye se omo be hwe na road tolls ahodo no yeyi afri honom na nei wo so afo sha akwan ne akwantempon so ye onmunyamfo Francis Asenso Boache wakasa ne nsemo kanyina ne se enya ade ampanifo sigi na ye se wo yi afri honom sa akwa wo ye se wo de cost suspension na se no susu se so mo san so editor boot ne ba ebebo man Ghana
contractors in so now me buy the technical advice I've received any petitions and complaints road users about South Road now idea a hard drain it's me am seven me so be many baby me an kasa minim that because me no road we say yes and say me here MP Kumasi into tembia me nam so na me nam so say as road minister na my be road minister there na say me name official as ba na nsema omo ka kire me no me di mani behwe na media so account na mbai no ma mehu no che say say bi fa ho maintenance no ehieska ehieska na nti pedifo ebube bi say yenkoti adrumre ya ani haban ya enti to road tolling ade ba kwa ye road tolling say binyeska na dey maintaining road no na make say adrumre bi aban suspended aban antwam. I think say na economic conditions na dey na Ghana for ho kire omo ne ade nti ban ka say suspend kakra they make am say mre no aso say as a country no you started a discussion na ye dey road toll eba
Shimamba makosi wake nkan kase ebo no ediamom no so afo hwensase eni obo ade ni paso ayo munyamfo Samuel Abuginapo ne wakwa akopie mu e wo Canada man meye Toronto na ho na ode to investors ahodo obo hono manim se wo pe oman asudie wo mu no mu di omusika behye honom se koba ni business nsem na koba se ye fumagudie ho nsem de oman Ghana no betumi akamfo ediamomo esanso oman Ghana ho se obepie mu anum se fumagudie aye hanum seima ena oman Ghana nso ya asudie man aso mu omusika bewura ha se ya omomoka
democracy would create the enabling environment for businesses to thrive and will religiously respect the sanctity of contracts. I urge you to take serious note of Ghana's conducive investment climate and take advantage of this enabling environment to invest in the country. Ghana, with an open society, vibrant economy, resilient democratic institutions, and where respect for individual rights, the rule of law, and the principles of democratic accountability are ingrained in her body politic, is ready for business. As host of the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area AfCFTA, investors are assured of the opportunity to use Ghana as a launch pad to reach the rest of Africa's continental economy with its 1.2 billion population and to maximize profits.
Samafo Edema National Food Suppliers Association eyon munyamfo Koku Amedume nene wakasa nsemo kanyina ne se Ghana mampanyina na adodanko akufuado ede omo nam kwan bi so asebi onya ade o manage ho esanse adwuma woso mo ye so be supply nuane ede ama schools ahodo no omudwuma no pepepe ne so ekoba ne se omusika sem no ba se mpanifo ba betwi omo ka na kwakoye yizimu si etwia asumesi ne ejob nti wo se mpanifo se sa ne ma no mo ye no omunja no mo hweso ntwi omu nyina aka pepepe
wetia up to badge. For instance, omo our supply under buffer stock. Wetia bi, but aka entire 2023 no so maybe about 80% e woman enyanji ye. Ebi 1 year. Ebi edi 1.5 year. Ebi edi 6 months. those are not buffer stock. Now can commodity exchanger for no the acquire na say am say ohono omutua no in terms in buffer stock eba ne say na obi buffer stock supply commodity exchange so supply but e could do aketua no so ayetua commodity exchange for no in term more than buffer stock me no ka say buffer stock suppliers and the buffer stock at the cap 2023 is can only 20% or 25% of the total amount owed suppliers. Total amount you're running to almost 300 million. 2021 ometia, 2022 ometia, 2023 and I account SMCC 2023 there yetia badge 2 badge 1 but the remaining badges any officials of buffer stock heading kitango and education also atnasia kasa. But there's a disconnection between buffer stock and education because sika aban release no anka was buffer stock enyemu 50% na education ministry so enyemu 50% e dey commodity exchange but sika eco commodity exchange no e does say sika buffer stock internal suppliers because a 50-50 is academic year say the total supply of food to the schools, buffer stock for 50% of the supplies, and a commodity exchange so far 50%. Into for all intent and purposes, you expect to say Sikebiaba, na ye chama the two institutions now. I say 50% core commodity exchanger, 50% super buffer stock. So by saying na buffer stock for the entire year, almost only 25, less than 25%. And whereas under commodity exchange, how many percent? Almost 70-80% on record. And buffer stock has not been able to give us a reason why. Almost say we should throw the questions to education. Mean to me, it's kind of by Obiatna, so there be minister evidence. But me person tia say dientia. More education no more than buffer stock for no beans and as a maize the mouth on credit because rainy season the train scan it to China rainy season rainy season musana afi no start planting this anyamana train music na ma body nyina obetimi flow gyina for no bu dua san
Chimamba samekoso akenkan kase bono e dia mamdia ne bebohia ba bepie mu e wasante mantema ha na ke mempanimfuo ni numeku ahuduo pidi won sa hyehente ase apomase adandwuma de efufura di kura ebeboa na sesei e kwan so dwodwo hyehye na hyenkafuo edi so sade ebe ya eya accident adolso bebrebe e wasante mantem no eso bete
ene kasan alanchwe de yebeye emebeboa ese ene wiase no ade bia bia no se wan fa data ana wan fa dansie anka ho a wontimi nwene ho enye ne yie enu nti no de o machire ye nyina no yebetu ho anamo esanse o machire baabia ka etai pranipa edi se baabia ka etai pranipa na de na ese ye no ho baabi ese ko street lights ana ese speed ramps ana ese ye den ya kan about enforcement police for yama mo training yama ye city gas training nyema ye de ka ho a eboa mom de ye adwuma no dodo sen ye de ka ho ama matimi aye adwuma no edu be launch report no no recommendations no na no na akire ye niema potia yenye ebise nipa enkwa ebise ye ma car ana afidie bi eyi free ho won so a enam form nkankan ye ma ne nananom a eco school no eno so no ba bia school zone no ye tu ho anamon a ye de speed limits no ekukọ sa areas no nti report is very important boye makeme ene all the stakeholders no ye nyina yetime hu de be ya ye bebo nipa ho ban na ma wonam street mu a na so hu ato kakra
Chimamba mekoso akenkan kase bono ediamam nandra da yɛte ase yɛn ka bi hyɛ mu na beto abonten sɛ ɛyɛ ɔsɔfo abedi etwa o man ni sikasɛm soɔ munyamfo John Kuma ato anananom wansi edo yayaya na sasem ye beto abonten NPP amanyoko na de hye pii ene na busua ɛwɔ dwoso na de wani kopie mu ɛwɔ ne fie wa asante mantam mu ɛyɛ dwoso ana ya rehusem yie pa ɛwɔ hɔ no.
You the any because they make me feel say no me feel say a new mabia no see because John yanino John entwamu 2 weeks Dr. John Kuma ni constituency mu Dr. John Kuma ba constituency mu a okwa eso DMT ena eko gise wa ehu no gise wa ama ho wo yi oba bema wo ye dai enti asem wo ya ato ye adwoso no chese yenim de beye wa sete nioma asamre kura no enioma bebre wo ho a me no kasai o Germany o send me message yanwene kwan ye befa so a nananom ahemafo ye be hia wo yanwene kwan ya MPs gala ye beye nyame adoma wo kwa aba na yato adwumadie so sabi adwuma yeso wo as member of parliament kwan ya ekoso bibi ekoso biya wo ye nti it's unfortunate to say we aba betum
ba e dey aba fast news so emraso say amahodo so nsema yensa kan aboaba no me dey ebeso aswafo a wo hwe apamodin nsem so e wo Africa amanyine mu aka won ho abomu ayenhyimu e wo Cameroon na senti a wo yenhyimu no ene se eye yade malaria intuidi no ati se e wo Africa memu atese edi ade hye e wo honum ewu na nti ana wafato wo ho so se wo beye ne obetini bia se ne beye malaria yade intuidi no so ebetini ate e wo Africa memu.
Ministers of health from the 12 African countries with the highest burden of malaria gathered in Yaoundé, Cameroon on Wednesday. Ending deaths from the disease remains a challenge despite a package of measures that have proven to be ineffective and not adapted to the continent, Mali's Minister of Health and Social Development urged to unite force. We call on civil society, communities and private actors to participate even more so that more funds can be invested into the fight against malaria through mechanisms such as RAMAD, the health insurance scheme for the most vulnerable, through private insurances and the compulsory health insurance scheme in Mali. Our goal is that the entire Malian population can benefit from the available treatments. Collaboration was therefore among the latest recommendations. The ministers agreed to communicate better, strengthen political efforts and increase resources to fight malaria as well as to improve national health research and innovation systems. The world's first malaria mass vaccine rollout recently started in Africa, where the disease still kills about 600,000 people every year.
Pour Africa News Television, je suis Joël Honoré Kwam.
One semna so ewa Nigeria menimu na asrafo a odi won dwuma ewo poso asai refinery site beye 135 na waka SNP say refinery site enye kwan papa na wafa so odi won dwuma.
2 weeks ago, the Forward Operating Base (FOB) of the Nigerian Navy in Bokoda in Ondo State launched a special operation to check criminal activities in a coastal environment, especially kidnapping, crude oil theft, and illegal oil bunkering. An area intelligence of these illegal refining sites through the use of a helicopter gave the naval personnel an opportunity to plan well. An operation was carried out in Awuya area where the refining sites were discovered. During the operation led by the commander of the Forward Operating Base (FOB) Bokoda, Navy Captain Washuku Alushi, personnel endured difficult terrain in the areas where the criminals operate. About 135,000 liters of crude oil stored in carefully dug out pits were discovered. The team destroyed the illegal refining sites to discourage oil bunkering.
saw how difficult the terrain was, and then you saw that it is a whole network of the criminal enterprise, and I'm sure you also saw the stolen crude physically on ground, and of course the network of engineering that was carefully carried out by these criminal elements.
Navy Captain Lucy said the Navy is poised to stamp out illegal oil bunkering and crude oil theft, as well as other criminal activities in the coastal communities in line with the directive of the Chief of Naval Staff.
What we are doing is in furtherance of the dictates of the Chief of the Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala. It's either we arrest the criminal elements at the point of stealing the crude, and then we can get them at the illegal refining site, or at the point of transshipment of the illegally refined product.
The Nigerian Navy says it will not relent in its effort to make the coastal communities of Ondo State free of maritime crime. Ayodeji Moradeyo, TVC News, Awuye.
United Nations mpanimfo agi US na ya wasi se obesu sushen edina ye dutiemu ewo Gaza no atom efise wo susu se enwa efra mahodo so ba eho eduaye bia ya papa ama.
The United Nations Security Council convened behind closed doors Thursday to discuss a draft resolution that's been circulated by the United States. It supports diplomatic efforts to secure a 6-week ceasefire and calls for the immediate release of hostages still held by Hamas. The US has previously vetoed 3 Security Council resolutions calling for a halt to the fighting. The UN's humanitarian aid coordinator for Gaza spoke to the press after the meeting to provide an update on the situation on the ground.
It's important to have a ceasefire, but in the meantime the humanitarian community will do whatever it can to meet the needs of people. They're entitled to food, they're entitled to shelter, they're entitled to health care.
Washington says more support for Gaza is coming. The construction of a floating pier could allow hundreds of aid trucks to enter the Palestinian enclave. The UN warns it's not enough.
Our focus and the international community's focus should continue to be on increasing the large-scale distribution and entry of aid by land. It is cost-effective, it is volume effective.
At least 10 children have reportedly died from hunger, and more than 500,000 people in Gaza are believed to be one step away from famine.
Aha, and a brother Macquarie, I'm a who does we do at the Nanekia dancer.
Say Samuel Chen, Yen Madame Banana Dance once was say. So the Amahodosun Semebesum, Yemekoswaka, Musakasia Bono, Facebook Live, Fast TV, GH, YouTube, Fast TV, GH, Shadow comment, or like and share Eddie Amaye. And some of more, it was media Santam Nidosi. Near the Makotini Bini, a your software shall quite near quantum pons when Munyam for Francis as and so watch at the better abon since they say, Mouse to say, and penning for Shania signs to be 2 boots a baby. Yet, Dinah so copy more, I was so off for Shensa, say, and your body any past when Munyam for Samuel Abijina Pro, and no a horn on so come for my Ghana, dear my investors in na, so Basso Mupe video musica, I should be made you a fan, a form, a good year Hunsema. We are in small Duopia County back in Kaima more Ewakasi of Wakwanso. Me a major penny and if you are down upon on some Pelmocasi of Bessongo. So she am your bonty, dear Belbo, Major Swani, a Conovan upset.